January 6th, 2026. Buddha Dhamma, uh, chapter 11, 11.6. Higher forms of sukha, happiness. Higher forms of happiness. A timeless happiness. As mentioned earlier, a definition for happiness is the fulfillment of desire. Yet this definition is not comprehensive. Technically speaking, this definition covers only lokiya, mundane reality. A supreme, transcendental form of happiness also exists, lokuttara. So we have lokiya and lokutraya. Lokiya is the mundane and lokutraya is the transcendental form of happiness. To some, this explanation may appear obtruse. To clarify this matter, it is useful to illustrate the different levels of happiness. Earlier, happiness was divided according to two distinct kinds of desires. But here it is necessary to introduce the concept of non-desire. This new classification results in two main levels of happiness and three sublevels. Happiness as the fulfillment of desire. Happiness as gratification of craving. The fulfillment of unwholesome desire, tanha. Happiness as the fulfillment of wholesome desire or wholesome enthusiasm, chanta. Happiness independent of the fulfillment of the desire, either present, ever-present happiness. The second main kind of happiness is dependent on both the fulfillment of tanha and the fulfillment of wholesome desire. So the fulfillment of craving and the fulfillment of chanta. It is independent, unconstrained, and free because it is an internal attribute. It exists inherent in people's hearts and is ever present. It is not dependent on abstaining or doing anything. If one needs to satisfy the needs of some form of desire in order to experience happiness, this indicates that the happiness is not yet present. One must then wait for fulfillment by pursuing or creating something. An independent kind of happiness, however, already exists within a person. Therefore, it is free from gratification of desire. It needs neither to be pursued nor to be created. Here someone may ask the question, are those people endowed with such happiness free from all desire, free from both tanha and from wholesome desire, chanda, free from craving and wholesome desire? Indeed, such people are fully endowed with wholesome desire, yet their happiness does not rely on the fulfillment or gratification as of this wholesome desire. Although they are replete in wholesome desire, their happiness is independent of all forms of desire. They are fully accomplished in the cultivations of sukha, happiness. To reach this accomplishment, one is first brimful of chanta, wholesome desire. And then one transcends even this chanta, transcends desire. Take, for example, Gautama Buddha, who, as described in one particular passage, was endowed with 18 attributes of Buddha Dhamma. The relevant attribute here is that he possessed unremitting wholesome enthusiasm, nati chanta sahani. We see here the multitude of Gautama Buddha's commitment to perform beneficent deeds, which are prompted by chanta, wholesome enthusiasm, in the form of karuna, compassion. Gautama Buddha worked tirelessly after his awakening for the remaining 45 years of his life. He worked day and night, undergoing many hardships for the well-being of all human beings. Gautama Buddha and the Arhats are filled with chanta, wholesome desire, but their happiness is independent of fulfilling this desire. Their normal constant state is one of sukha, of happiness. Another way of describing the three levels of sukha is as follows. Happiness requiring a pursuit, happiness gratifying craving, happiness created by oneself, happiness fulfilling wholesome desire, inherent ever-present happiness, happiness independent of fulfilling desire. The first kind of happiness require pursuit because those objects of enjoyment that satisfy tanha, craving, are external, material things. They must be sought after and consumed. One must seize these external things and have them make contact with one's senses. The second kind of happiness is self-generated because in order to fulfill the desire to learn, the desire to know, the desire to study, the desire to perform wholesome deeds, the desire for the appreciation of nature, etc., one relies on one's own dedication and commitment. This happiness, the sukha, can be created without relying on external things. The third kind of happiness is ever present for when happiness exists as an internal attribute, as an ordinary natural state of mind. Then it is constantly present. One need not seek or do anything to obtain such happiness. One may wonder how to become a person who is able to enjoy all three kinds of happiness: the pleasure of seeking sense objects, sense-generated happiness, and abiding, ever-present happiness. Wouldn't such a person be proficient? Indeed, a sotapanna, a stream enterer, are those individuals able to enjoy these three kinds of sukha, three kinds of happiness. It turns out that those persons who are truly accomplished in all three kinds of levels of sukha, of happiness, arihats, are fully satisfied by independent, unconstrained happiness. Although if they wanted to, they could enjoy all three kinds of happiness. They are no longer interested in the first kind of happiness, dependent on material objects. This will be discussed at more length below. Ideal happiness. Happiness can be grouped or classified in many different levels and ways. Let us examine Gautama Buddha's classification of sukha, happiness, into 13 pairs. Here are some examples from this classification. Kayika sukha, cetasika sukha, physical happiness and mental happiness. Samisa sukha, niramisa sukha, material happiness, happiness dependent on material things. Independent happiness, happiness independent of material things. Gihi sukha pachita sukha, householder happiness, the happiness of renunciants. Kama sukha, nikama sukha, sense pleasure, happiness derived from desirable and alluring sights, sound, smell, tastes, tangible objects, happiness from acquisition and consumption, happiness secluded from sensuality, happiness free from sensuality, free from sensual allurements and enticement, the happiness of renunciation, happiness not tied up with acquisition. Gautama Buddha gave this teaching to distinguish between the many different kinds of sukha. Moreover, through a familiarity with this teaching, one understands the relationship between different kinds of sukha. On a related subject, knowledge of the various kinds of sukha enables one to outline ideal forms of sukha. Here are recognitions that happiness is the goal of spiritual training is connected to the teaching of the different planes of existence, or different states of mind, which is a person can reach through spiritual cultivation. The universe is traditionally divided into 3 planes of existence: Teba Sukmaka, the realm of sensuality; Kama Bhumi, where beings are still tied up to sense pleasure; the realm of fine material form, Rupa Bhumi, the plane of fine material Brahmas; Rupa Brahma, the immaterial realm, Arupa Bhumi, the plane of immaterial Brahmas; Arupa Brahma. Another plane, the transcendent plane, Lokutraya Bhumi, existence surpassing the threefold plane of existence. In the relation to the threefold plane of existence, the term Bhumi refers to a specific world, Loka, a sphere of existence occupied by beings native to the plane or native to the realm. Alternatively, it refers to a particular state of mind developed by beings to reach such a plane, or for beings to reach such a realm of existence. The second definition, referring to one's state of mind, can also be applied in relationship to the transcendent plane. What this means is that a percentage of beings dwells in a specific plane of existence. In particular, some human beings in the world may have developed various states of mind. In particular, to human beings in the world, they have developed various stages of mind in the effect that have reached various planes, including the transcendental plane. These planes, Bhumi, can be grouped as follows: Kama Bhumi, central plane; Rupa Bhumi, fine material plane, and the immaterial plane; Arupa Bhumi, these constitute the realm of the Brahma gods; transcendental plane, Lokutraya Bhumi. In the relation to happiness, these 3 planes can be described thus: central plane endowed with sense pleasure, Kama Sukha. The idea is to be divine, Deva, or to be born in the heavens, Saga. Here one has developed oneself and reached the supreme kind of sense pleasure. Although one is still endowed with dukkha, with suffering, or of unawakened beings, one is free from opposition and punishment. Brahma pain endowed with the happiness of jhana, jhana sukha. Here the ideal is to be born as a Brahma. Transcendental plane endowed with happiness of nibbita, nibbita sukha. Here the idea is the fruit of arihatship. Buddhism is a system of training for the spiritual development of human beings. It follows the principle that every individual should continually cultivate him or herself to reach a more refined form of happiness, of sukha. Moreover, nevertheless, and in addition to any one time, different people exist in different stages of development. For this reason, the world should be a conducive place for each individual to make progress according to which stages he or she is at. Setting happiness at the goal of spiritual training, human beings should develop themselves in the 3 planes mentioned above in order to reach successively more refined levels of happiness. Through moral training, one develop physical actions in order to create beneficial relationships in one's environment. One cultivates morality in order to support others and to live together happily. In short, by developing generosity and virtuous conduct. one attains the delights of heaven. Although mental training would abide in such conducive environment, one develops the mind in various qualities, in particular to the four divine abidings. Brahma Vihara, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekha. The four loving Brahma Viharas, the four divine abidings. Establishing concentration, one's mind is steadily poised and happily. One develops happiness of mind until one reaches happiness of concentration absorption, jhana. Through panya, through wisdom training, by relying on the accomplishment of the mind development, one cultivates wisdom and insight. One sees things clearly according to the truth. One discerns continuality of causes and effects. One knows how to successfully reach the goal. One is able to solve problems, dispel sufferings. One frees the mind and reaches the happiness of nibbida. Heavenly beings themselves, amused with central objects and activities, Brahma's gods are satisfied with refined happiness of mind, including the happiness of concentration absorption. Arihats, having transcended the bounds of sense pleasures, fully realize the happiness of nibbida. Stream enterers, sotapannas, access happiness of three planes, of the sense pleasure, happiness of the higher mind, ati sita sukha, in transcendental happiness, lokutraya sukha, having not yet abandoned any of these. Supreme happiness of Gautama Buddha, Gautama Buddha asserted that he was realized a happiness surpassing the happiness of the great monarch, whose happiness is considered by most ordinary people as being supreme. On one occasion, Gautama Buddha went and met members of Nikanta order. Remember, the Nikanta order was the Jain, a sect, the Jainism sect, who were practicing various forms of asceticism and self-mortification. He spoke with them about religious practices they undertook for reaching their desired goal. The Nikanta Jain followers practiced severe austerities because they believed that happiness cannot be achieved by way of happiness. It can only be achieved by way of pain. In order to support this belief, they compared King Bimbisara with Gautama Buddha, saying that if one were able to achieve supreme happiness, the highest goal of religious practice, by way of pleasure, then King Bimbisara would surely have attained this achievement, since his happiness and comfort exceeds that of Gautama Buddha. The Nikanta, the Jainism sect, said that this is because they held common belief that since King Bimbisara possessed lavish wealth and great power, his ease and comfort must be greater than Gautama Buddha of that of Gautama Buddha, who has relinquished the worldly possession, wandering about in remote mountains and forests, observes various religious practices. Surely Gautama Buddha suffered similar pain and difficulty as the Nikanta, the Jainist sect themselves. Gautama Buddha, however, rejected their claim, proved their premise false by saying that King Bimbisara does not have more happiness than happiness of Gautama Buddha. On the occasion, Gautama Buddha experienced greater happiness than the king. From the perspective of ordinary people, it was difficult to judge whether Gautama Buddha had more happiness than King Bimbisara, because most people include the Nikanta in this story. Take as a measurement of abundance on an external level. For example, the amount of one's wealth, power, prestige, personal retinue, etc., of all which Gautama Buddha had relinquished. In fact, it is impossible to use such external things as a gauge for someone's true internal happiness. And therefore, Gautama Buddha did not submit those things as proof. Indeed, measuring a person's internal happiness, which is invisible, is difficult to do. Gautama Buddha used other criteria, which are clearly discernible to others, as a decisive way to determine a person's internal happiness. He did this by asking whether King Bimbisara would be able to sit there for 7 days, or even 1 day, without moving or speaking, and experience uninterrupted happiness. Ultimately, the answer was no. Gautama Buddha went on to say that if he himself is able to sit still and experience such uninterrupted happiness for 2, 3, even 7 days, the Nikanta group, a sect from Jainism, thus conceded that Gautama Buddha had more happiness than King Bimbisara. Gautama Buddha compared the pleasure derived from the 5 sense objects to a fire made from straws and twigs. Although it was bright, it is not resplendent because it was clouded by smoke. The happiness and bliss independent of material sense objects and free from unwholesome states, on the other hand, is like a fire burning without using grass and twigs as fuel. Its light is pure and bright, devoid of any stain. In this sutra, a fire not created from straw or wood, a fire without any smoke, is hypothetical. It could only be created that of the time in history unless someone did so by way of psychic powers. These days, however, there are modern scientific achievements enabling such a fire. Or in other words, they were speaking in metaphors of another form of fire that was not created by twigs or straw.